Anita to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ramkumar, who will be delivering the Phaneendra Thota oration this year.
It's my pleasure to introduce my guru, Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran, who will be delivering the oration, Professor Phaneendra Thota oration, right after this. Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran was like this when I joined as a postgraduate, and I have been very fortunate to have seen him transform into that as well. Sir came to Manipal in 1984, and Professor Phaneendra Thota, I think, should take the credit of having identified this diamond, which was actually given a wonderful shape thereafter. And I'm sure Dr. Murali Shivarajan had his input as well. And all the CPR classes that we used to have in 1984, long back in our classroom every week, that this diamond could actually transform anything that you give him, everything would take a wonderful shape right after. So those classes that we had in classroom, CPR classes, became this. And he became the director of simulation centers. That's what you see today. And that was a transformation. And again, all these brilliant minds were working together. And these were the ones who actually laid the foundation for APGAP as you see today. And you can see all the different forms of APGAP. And Ramkumar sir has been the backbone or the core of these APGAPs in various forms, various years. He even managed to get the first anesthetist, Dr. Punno's here for one of those APGAPs. So that is what Sir has been. That's the contribution he's had. He's had contributions starting respiratory therapy, and you can see all the students there. And you can see how closely he's been working with Phani sir there. And of course, the Operation Smile. So all of us have been trained in so many different ways by Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran, my guru. And he has been the favicol in holding the department together. So if the Department of Anesthesia has been known all over the country and maybe even outside, they say, okay, Manipal anesthesia, okay, we know this, and that's all because of these two people, Professor Phaneendra Thota and Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran, and that is why we thought it's most apt that Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran gives the oration today. So he's been the favicol in our department. And you must have seen one outside as well. So we have been having these collages every time, the Manipal Anesthesia family, and wonderful memories with Sir, not only at work, not only at teaching, but even all these kind of figures that you've seen. Okay, so Sir has been our mentor for clinical work, academics, to maintain a stress-free workplace. You must see the amount of friendship that people have in between. But integrity is never ever lost. There's so much of camaraderie, but then you have to work in a particular way. So it's been a perfect blend of all these qualities in Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran, and I think it's my pride to be able to introduce Sir to you all who will be giving the oration. Well, he has elevated the department in new heights. He has taught us all the life values, everything that is important. I'm sure a lot of people in this group who will watch for this, that the life values have been taught by him. And of course, there's a big contribution by the woman behind. Madam is also here. And so I invite Professor Ramkumar Venkateswaran to come and give the oration.
A very good morning to everybody. I was telling Harshita, who's in charge of the stage, that don't time my oration because I might get emotional. And that's exactly what happened. With Professor Krishna Rao sitting next to me, I've taken his blessings before coming on to the dais, sir, and I hope I do justice to the oration. Now, I thought, when I was asked about 8 months ago by Anita to deliver the oration, I was wondering what should I do? Because generally an oration topic is related to what is your life's work. And I don't believe I've done anything that is earth-shattering in my career, but what I have done is probably a lot of teaching, a lot of clinical work. And that's the reason why I chose this topic on how to be a good clinician and a good anesthesiologist. And in this venture, most of us in this room have been led by Professor Phaneendra Thota, and he's kind of the doyen for us in this particular field of teaching. What I thought I would do was, when I looked at the audience, I realized that there's going to be several people in this room. Majority are doctors. And I would also think that the majority of those doctors are anesthesiologists. And we have different categories of doctors in this room. We have the postgraduates in anesthesiology who are just taking their first faltering steps into the field of anesthesia. We have people who spent maybe 15, 20 years in the discipline and therefore they are well established in the discipline. And there are some who are either knocking on the doors of retirement or who already retired. And what I thought I would do was talk about all of these and try to have a message for every one of you. So there'll be frequent questions that I might pose. I'm not going to ask you for an answer to that. But I would like if you would give your answer to yourself in your own heart. And then you will know how we are proceeding for this. Right, so I would like to start with the story of where I first met Dr. Thota, and we were both students of JIPMA, Pondicherry. My first meeting with Dr. Phani was therefore in JIPMA in the year 1972-1973, when I was the first MBBS student, and Dr. Thota, as a student president, was leading a doctor strike. So even then, well, you talk about 1972-73, Dr. Thota must have been about 21 years old, and even at that young age, he had a fire in his belly. And he was a student president. We were all in awe of him. If he says stand, we would stand at attention. If he says sit, we would sit. If he says shout, we would shout. Remember, it was a strike that he was leading. And he showed his leadership qualities right then and there itself. My next meeting was a few years later. In the meanwhile, Dr. Thota had moved on to Chandigarh. He finished his post-graduation, came back to JIPMA to do a few months of service there. And that's the time I met him when I was an intern in anesthesia. And that's in 1977, before Dr. Thota moved on to Kasturba Medical College, Manipal. I myself joined KMC Manipal on the 2nd of September 1985. That's about 33 years ago. And at that point of time, there were two pillars in the department, Dr. Phani Thota and Dr. Murli Sivarajan, who formed the academic backbone of the department. And I was fortunately, in a way, from the same stable. All three of us were from JIPMA, Pondicherry. Murli was 10 years senior to me. Phani was 5 years senior to me, and I was the young fellow who came out of JIPMA at that time, and they both very willingly took me under their wings, and that has been the most fortunate thing that happened to me after I joined in Manipal. These are two doyens in the field of anesthesia, and to have both of them as your mentors is something that is really a godsend for me. Now, they were also possibly the deciding factors for my staying on in Manipal, because the first few indecisive years, I was in two minds. Did I make the right decision or not? But I think as things went along, and now when I look back, I have no hesitation at all that I'm glad that I spent the major part of my career, professional career, in Manipal. And both Murli and Phani were responsible for my having taken that decision. I really bow down to them today. Now, Dr. Phani is acclaimed as one of the best teachers of anesthesiology in the country. And he's also one of the toughest yet fairest examiners of anesthesiology. Now, if a candidate passes in an examination, and Thota is an examiner, that candidate deserves to pass. Having said that, if there is something wrong, wrong in the basic understanding of the way you deal with anesthesia, he wouldn't have any hesitation in failing that candidate. And that was the kind of fairness we needed, not only in teaching, but also in evaluation. And that is something that's probably lacking in these days. So though Dr. Thota was considered a very tough examiner, I'm sure people who have gone through his hands as an examiner would feel doubly happy when they pass the examination, because they know that this is a person who sets the bar really high. And when you pass such an examination, you know that you really cross the bar very elegantly. Now, we are standing at the threshold of not threshold, we've already started, the 16th APGAP in the series since 1984. And fortunately for me, I have been associated with all 16 of them, 14 in a direct manner and 2 of them in an indirect manner. So I'm really one of the lucky ones who's been through all the 16 APGAPs since its inception in 1984. And who are the people who put Manipal on the map through these APGAPs? None other than Dr. Thota and Dr. Murli Sivarajan. 1988, December, when Dr. G.J. Lala, whom you just heard Madhusudan say, who passed away on the 26th of September, when he came back from a national conference, he just announced in the department one day, I have accepted to do the national conference in 1989. Now remember, as of now, even then, everybody would have a 2-year lead time to organize the conference. It's a big event. We need to do a lot of work. But Dr. Lala accepted to do it in 1 year. And whom did he find to do this job? None other than Dr. Thota. He was the chairman of the scientific committee. And as soon as he came back, he told Dr. Thota, you're the one who's in charge. Make sure that this goes off well. And of course, Dr. Lala was known to identify leaders. And you can't get a better leader than Dr. Thota. Dr. Thota was also a good team player. And so what did he do? He picked up 3 of us to be around him. And you can see us in 1989 with a little more hair on the head and little black hair more than white. So we were the team that was built up. For those of you, you may not know the other 2, Dr. Raghavendra Rao and Dr. Manikant Lodaya. The 4 of us actually formed the core group of the scientific committee, and that was the team building abilities of Thota. So with this background, I now go on to the topic of what I was going to talk on in this oration, and that is towards being an effective practitioner and teacher of anesthesiology. And both of these is what FANI stood for, and therefore I thought that this is an apt topic to talk about. Now, I'd like to talk about my 3 gifts from God. I'll go through one by one. My first gift from God was my becoming a doctor, which in fact was an accident. I was the youngest of 5 children. The 4 earlier siblings had been given some other profession to follow. And so my parents decided, you become a doctor, and I became a doctor. It doesn't happen these days like that. So I just became a doctor by chance, right? And what did I get along with that? I got the ability to touch human lives. I think every single doctor has that ability, whether you realize it or not, that they can actually have the ability to touch human lives much more than any other profession in this world. And what are the qualities you need to have to be a good doctor? I put up 3 C's because doctors are very fond of mnemonics. And I think what we need is basically courage to take up this particular challenge. You have to be very compassionate because you're dealing with human lives, and no doubt you have to be competent. Without these 3 C's, if you believe you can become a good doctor, I think you are fooling yourselves. Right. Now, an engineer, younger colleague of mine who lives in Manipal, he told me one day, Uncle, do you realize that every morning that you wake up, you have the ability to touch at least one human life? And that's what got me thinking. Well, maybe every profession has that ability, but we are in a uniquely situated profession where, by virtue of being a doctor, we have this thrust upon us. This ability is bestowed upon us to be able to touch at least one human life every day. And this is something we forget very often, and something that we probably get lost in the routine, mundane of routine work. We forget that we are dealing with human lives, and I think that's a very important thing to remember. My gift number 2 was becoming an anesthesiologist. And once again, like many people in this room, and I've said this often before at career counseling programs, anesthesia was not my first subject, and therefore not my first option. My first option was to become a pediatrician. And day 2 in pediatrics during my internship posting, I said, no, this is not for me, because children were dying without any reason. Children are nice as long as they are healthy, but it is very, very heartbreaking to see a child that is not well. And therefore I said, within 2 days of my internship, 2 days of my posting in pediatrics, I said, I'm not going to be a pediatrician. Then I started training my eyes, started looking at surgery as an option. And very soon I realized that God has given me 10 thumbs. And I don't think I would ever be good at operating. And therefore I said, okay, let me go into anesthesia. That way I'll get to watch more surgery. And that's how I became an anesthesiologist. Right. Now, along with this gift of becoming an anesthesiologist, we have the gift to relieve pain. And remember, when you look at statistics, more than 50% of patients who come to the hospital have pain as a symptom, and we have the ability to relieve that pain. And 100% of patients undergoing surgery will have pain, and therefore we have that ability to relieve that pain as well. So we are a unique profession that can actually kind of provide solace to the most disturbing problem that a patient will have in hospital, and that's how uniquely placed we are. And to do this, we need 2 things. We need knowledge and we need skills. I mean, look at this particular picture. We know that the keystone, which has been indicated with an arrow, is the most important stone that keeps any arch together. And therefore, knowledge, I believe, is the keystone that provides the arch of competence. If you do not have that competence in you, then the entire arch is going to collapse, if not today, maybe sometime down the line. So we have to look at our career as accumulation of knowledge. And I'd like to bring in here Sri T. Ramesh U. Pai is one of the very senior members of the extended Pai family of Manipal. And what he used to say about knowledge was, knowledge should flow like a meandering river. The more stagnant the water is, the more stale it becomes. And this, I think, is a very important statement to remember, because majority of us in this room have knowledge, but some of us keep it to ourselves, and that is no way to become a teacher. If you want to be called a teacher, and truly a teacher, you've got to disseminate that knowledge. Whatever little knowledge you have must be disseminated. And this is the story, this is the bottom line that I took from the statement made by Sri T. Ramesh U. Pai, late Ramesh Pai. Now, talking about knowledge, there are two things that the first bullet point says. Never stop accumulating knowledge, and never stop disseminating this knowledge. So there are two things to this. One is, you've got to be a learner for life. You have to be learning every single day, and if you keep it to yourself, you'll become a very good clinician, no doubt. You'll be revered by everybody around you, but if you do not disseminate this, there's no use keeping knowledge to yourself. It's like keeping money in the bank and never using it at all. So I believe that there are two aspects of being a good teacher. One is accumulate knowledge as you go along, and two, more importantly, disseminate this knowledge. And how do we do that? See, medical science is changing every day, making it very important for us to keep abreast of these advances. If you think that you can practice any discipline, including anesthesia, with your knowledge that was there 10 years ago, you'll be lost. And that is really what happened to me listening to Pankaj, because I've not really held an ultrasound probe in my life. I must admit that here. And there's so much to learn with just the little area that he dealt with over half an hour, and there's so much of information that comes out of it. So you have to keep abreast with knowledge. Without that, you cannot advance in your career, either as a teacher or as a clinician. Now, how does one keep abreast? This is where we start thinking. Okay, so keep abreast. We need to set aside some time every day for professional development. And this is not just as a first-year resident or a second-year resident or a third-year resident. It is at every point of your career. And this is something that I did till I became a professor in anesthesiology. After that, the pressures of running the department, I could not keep up to it, but I would definitely at least designate about 3 to 4 mornings in a week to keep reading. And I think that's very important that all of us do that. You have to update your knowledge. You have to set aside some time. Like you set aside some time for sleep or for recreation, I think it should be very much part of our lives to set aside some time for professional development as well. And without that, we cannot really call ourselves truly a teacher. How can we do that very easily? We can do that by attending hands-on workshops and conferences. One of the capsules which gives you in 2 or 3 days a lot of information. So please make sure that you keep attending conferences. At one point of time, MCI came up with a brilliant suggestion, but they never pursued it. I think that is one thing that we lost. They said that we have to have credits to continue practicing our profession, but we are quite lackadaisical about the way we practice our profession. We do not keep ourselves updated, and that I think is a very wrong way to approach the profession. You also need, some of us are fortunate, many of us in this room are fortunate to be in teaching departments. And in a teaching department, in some departments 4 times a week, in some departments 6 times a week, excluding Sunday, you have people presenting topics to you. They've taken a lot of trouble to prepare those topics. You just have to go sit there in that room and you get knowledge just flowing into your minds. So there are easy ways of doing that if you are not inclined to set aside some time for professional development. At least attend these classes, get some passive knowledge, like passive smoking, so to say. You can't actively accumulate knowledge, at least accumulate knowledge by going and sitting in these classes, and definitely all of us have something to contribute. So please do contribute to the PG teaching program, and I think that's one great way of keeping abreast. How about skills? Skill sets need to be acquired, as I've written there, by PGs as well as staff under supervision. You do not have to hesitate learning from a junior colleague. There are people who have specialized in certain areas, and if you have to keep going ahead in your profession, you have to learn every day a new skill. And I say you must look at, and it's Dr. PLNG Rao who's sitting here in the first row, who told me once that, Ram, you have to have a balance sheet of your day every day. Look at the input and the output. And if you have not benefited at the end of the day, if your balance sheet is looking awesome, it's good. If you're looking awful, then you've got to rethink whether you're on the right career path or not. So you have to maintain your clinical competence by actively participating in assigned clinical work. We're all assigned some work every day, right? Whether you're in private practice or in a teaching department. So at least do that, in a very sincere manner, and that would be a very good way of doing it. And never sacrifice compassion in your passionate quest for acquiring skills. Remember, patients are patients. They're not guinea pigs for you to learn a technique on. And this goes at all levels, okay? Starting from residents right up to a professor is going to retire the next day. Now, we always emphasize in every program technical skills. Technical skills are the part and parcel of any postgraduate teaching program. However, there's something equally important on the flip side of the coin, and those are the non-technical skills. And though equally important, these are left to chance learning by observing role models. All of us are not lucky to have role models in our departments. If you are lucky to have a role model, well, yes, you can follow that role model. But otherwise, there has to be some system of getting this into your system. You have to not just accumulate technical knowledge and skills, but you also need to concentrate on non-technical skills. We already had a speaker talking about communication skills earlier, and Professor Krishna Rao used to say, a good communicator is often a successful person. Professor Krishna Rao was also a very good listener, and that's one art I learned from you, sir, how to listen. But as head of the department, I think I benefited the maximum from that one statement that you made. You said you have to be an active listener in order to be able to solve problems. And unless you can actively listen to the people bringing the problems to you, you can never lead a department. And I think I benefited a lot from what you said, sir. Thank you very much for that. Now, absence of communication or miscommunication is the commonest reason for misunderstanding. And mark it not just at your workplace, but even at home. You can have misunderstanding with your colleagues. You can have misunderstanding with your wife, your son, your daughter-in-law, your grandchild even. Okay. And so everything boils down to good communication. And therefore, if you're a good communicator, you have half the battle won. You can communicate in various ways. But I just picked up this one little book, which is presented to me by Dr. Murali Sivarajan, written by two psychologists from the Harvard University. And the title goes, How the Way We Talk Can Change the Way We Work. And we tried looking collectively at this at the departmental level. We didn't get very far beyond the third chapter, but I think it is 7 chapters, and it says in small letters there, 7 languages for transformation. A lot of us are lucky to work in cohesive departments, but many of us work in departments that are not that cohesive. And this book, I think, will help to bring everybody on the same page. So this is something that I would recommend. Unfortunately, no new issue has come out. It's still an edition that's about 20 years old. But human behavior has not changed, I can promise, in the last 20 years. And I don't think anything in this book is out of date even now. If you can get your hands on this book, please do. And read it in your spare time. That's also professional development. My third gift of becoming a teacher. Why do I say it's a gift? I say it's a gift because a teacher is given the ability to create lasting relationships. And I have picked up this from the net, of course, where you have a fetus connected to the world with an umbilical cord. And I always say that the umbilical cord of our postgraduates is never cut. They just get extended. Some of them may go far away places in India, some go across the world, right to the other continents, but it is never ever cut. And that is, I still have postgraduates calling me who left the department 25 years ago, and they say, sir, I did this kind of an exciting case today, and I just wanted to keep you informed. So that's the kind of relationship you need to try and develop as a teacher, right? Do not ever cut the umbilical cord, and it's a unique opportunity you get as a teacher. Now, this is a very famous saying by William Arthur Ward, and it classifies teachers. It says the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. So all of us should at least hope to be an inspirational teacher by the end of your career. You need to do something to inspire your people, your students who are working under you, in order to become what they are today. Now, you have to be passionate as a teacher. Teaching, I believe, is the best form of learning, because when one starts teaching, one actually realizes how precious little one really knows. Because you think you know everything, and then your postgraduate comes and asks you a very simple question, and you get stumped. And it's good to have these kind of stumpings once in a way, because it makes you think. Because you shouldn't sail along thinking that you know every answer. And therefore, I think you have to have inquisitive postgraduates to come and raise the bar for you every now and then. Who is a good teacher? Now, this slide and the next 3 slides, I'm going to refer to 3 Krishnas. The first one is Dr. Krishna Rao, who's sitting in the first row. I once asked him during one of the medical education meetings, sir, is a good teacher born, or can you become a good teacher by nurturing certain values? And he said, by all means, Ram, it is not a genetic predisposition for you to become a good teacher. You observe teachers at work, absorb what you think is right from them, and then you can become a good teacher yourself. And this is the advice you gave me once at one of the workshops, I think way back in 1986 is what you said that. I try to inculcate that in my life, and I think that's a very important thing to look at. The other one is a series of 3 statements. Okay, the other Krishna I'm referring to is 3 statements. A good teacher must know how to arouse the interest of the people in the field of study for which he is responsible. That's one part of the statement. Part 2 of the statement is he must himself or herself be a master in the field and be in touch with the latest developments in the subject. Once again, your professional time that you need to spend every day to keep yourself up to date is very important. And finally, he must himself be a fellow traveler in the exciting pursuit of knowledge. And this is said by none other than Professor S. Radhakrishnan, whose birthday we celebrate as Teachers' Day. He was our first Vice President and the second President of India. And we celebrate his birthday as a Teachers' Day. And I think he's got so many important ideas being projected in this complex statement that he has made. The third one I refer to my own son, Krishna, who has now gone into the field of education. And I asked him one day, just over the table, I said, Krishna, what do you think is a good teacher? What constitutes a good teacher? And the statement he made actually made me thinking again. What he said was, a teacher need not be brilliant, and I marked that. We all believe that you've got to be somewhere super there to be a good teacher. You don't have to. You can be an average person, and you can still be a good teacher. So what do you need is basically you should be compassionate, and you should also be passionate about what he is doing. And this is a statement made by my son, and I thought I will acknowledge him. So starting with Professor Krishna Rao, and then Radhakrishnan, and now Krishna Ramkumar, we now have something to look at as to what is a good teacher. I have put for you a picture here of Dr. Jarubala Hanumanta Rao. He was 6 years senior colleague to mine, and there's so much I've learned from him. And one of the things I learned from him, which constitutes my definition of a good teacher, is one who is honest enough to stand up and say, I don't know. Nobody can know everything, okay? Nobody can know everything in this world, even if you have spent hours reading a book. And there's nothing wrong in standing up and acknowledging the fact that you do not know something. And again, Dr. Hanumanta Rao, very often at any meeting, is the first one to put up his hand and ask, hey Ram, you said something, or hey Pankaj, you said something, it's not very clear. Can you please explain it to me again? So there's nothing wrong in being a senior person and not understanding what's happening, right? And we should be honest enough to accept that. What we should not do is the squirt technique, the squid technique, which actually squirts ink. And this is what, again, Thota told us. He said, avoid the squid technique. If your postgraduate comes to you and asks you a question and you do not know the answer to it, just say, I don't know. Just don't try to bury your answer in a whole lot of terms which your PG doesn't understand, and possibly you also don't understand. And then, under cover of that ink that you squirted into the water, you just escape from the question. This is something that he told us not to do, and I think many of us are culpable of this. So let's not do that. Let's just be Jarubala Hanumanta Rao and say, I don't know. Go read up about it and then come back the next day and give the answer. Sitting next to Dr. Hanumanta Rao is my teacher, under whom I did my MD, Dr. Prabha Ramakant Kangle, who is now in Bombay. And she's the one who instilled this idea of being forever in the pursuit of knowledge. Even till she was about 80 years old, she used to read something every day. And when we bring out new editions, when some of her students, like Manoj Karmakar, brought out a new book on ultrasound, when we wrote a book, Yashoda, Bhavani Shankar and myself, we had a book on equipment, we all made it a point to present her with the first copy of it. And she still is very actively reading it. Never let down your teachers or your alma mater is the next point I want to get across. View years spent during a post-graduation not just as time spent learning anesthesiology, but more importantly, honor the values that your teachers have tried to inculcate in you during your formative years. Now, this is a series of 2 questions. Okay. Now, does the faculty influence the quality of postgraduates? You can answer yourself in your mind. Many of us think that the faculty, if they are good, the postgraduates coming out of the department will also be good. But I think quite contrary to that. I believe the second part of the statement is actually true. Does the postgraduate set the bar that determines the quality of the faculty? If you have inquisitive postgraduates, if you have postgraduates who come and question you on every statement that you make, I'm sure sooner or later you'll feel ashamed of yourself. And when you feel ashamed of yourself, that's the worst insult a teacher can have. And then you'll go start reading your books. And when you read your books, you yourself become clear about it, and then you don't have to be dishonest anymore. Right? So I think this is the way to go forward. Right? You just keep looking at what the incite, inspire your postgraduate to ask questions. Okay. I know personally of many teachers who do not like students approaching them with questions. The class is over, there ends the matter. No more questions after that. It's not a good way of doing it. Another thing I want to touch upon is honesty and integrity. Funny was intolerant of even an iota of dishonesty among postgraduates and colleagues. And all of us know that we've been sent out of the operating room for what he thinks is dishonest. Okay, we've been sent out of not for a day. Some of us have been, luckily I was not a student, I was his junior colleague, so I've never been sent out of an operation theatre, but he has sent people out for 1 week out of the operating rooms, and some of them may be in this audience also today, right? So he sent them out just because they didn't know a basic fact. He said, you go, there is a beautiful library, I give you off from work. Read up this point, when you're sure you have the answer, come back and tell me the answer, then and only then I'll let you come into the operating room. That's the kind of commitment you need as a teacher. He also possibly considered that honesty and integrity are way above clinical competence in anesthesiology. You can be a mediocre anesthesiologist, but you have to be real high on honesty and integrity, is where he actually led all of us to. Now, can we teach honesty? That's the next question. We can teach anesthesia, but can we teach honesty? My teachers taught me much more than the subject of anesthesiology. By playing the role model, they taught me the importance of honesty and integrity. And remember, knowledge and skills can be acquired over time. I've listened to enough debates among youngsters saying that, do we need teachers? Do we need classrooms? Can't we get everything from the Google master? No. I think you do need teachers, and I think what they teach is something like this. You can get knowledge and skills from textbooks, but I think honesty has to come from within. And that within has to be stirred up by a role model who's there in your department. And unless that happens, I don't think we are getting anywhere as far as teaching and profession is concerned. Now, what is integrity? Just a little bit of definition here. Integrity is a measure of how much an individual values strength of character over short-term gains obtained through dishonest means. Now today I can say something and get away with it. I can bluff my way through. But if you're looking at strength of character, that's not the way to progress in your career, right? May as well accept, may as well say, okay, I've made a mistake, I will not make it again, is what you have to say at any level, okay? I'm not just talking about residents, I'm talking about now staff, even senior professors, even including head of the department. I think we need to get into that habit of saying that, okay, I know I've done wrong, I will not do it again. And if we just keep bluffing our way through, sooner or later, we will get into trouble. Now this is, I retired 15 months ago. To the date, you can say. I retired 15 months ago. And a few months before retirement, my mind was in a turmoil. Because I know that for the last 32 years, I was driving down this road, and without a second thought, I would take the left turn. I knew where to turn to go to work. But then a point will come in everybody's life, and this is for the older people in the audience, when you will have to consider retirement. And retirement is not bad. I'm thinking of writing a book on retirement, actually. Because I think with retirement comes a lot of advantages. You have time to do a lot of things that you never had time to do. Okay? You have time to do a lot of introspection. Okay? And basically, you have time to develop new interests. And Professor Valyathan told Dr. Vani and me when we retired that develop new contacts in your brain. Develop new networks in your brain. Because if you don't develop new networks, your brain will die sooner than you want it to. And this is what we try and do. So, on the 30th of June last year, I took the right turn into retirement. I have not really retired from active work, but I still do not do much of clinical work any longer. So at this point, when Anita asked me to do this lecture, I said, okay, 8 months ago, I said, let me think back on my career. What have I achieved as a clinician, as a teacher? And that'll be a good point for many people in the audience because many of us are budding teachers, many of us are at various levels of becoming known in our teaching profession. And I thought I'll just start off with my career failures, and there are 2 of them. There are many more, but there's not enough time to dwell on those career failures. The first one is this statement: nothing will happen to my patient. And I just want to recall 2 incidents that happened. One in 1986, when I had just joined the department, and one a year or 2 before I retired from the department. And on both these instances, my residents let me down. Because it is known that we have a statement that says, for some must watch while some must sleep. And I cannot expect an anesthetized patient to be left unattended. Okay? And this happened very early in my career in this institution. That person is a very renowned and popular anesthesiologist in the UK now, but I'm sure he learned the lesson from what I tried to teach him that day, that he will never ever leave his anesthetized patient without somebody being there in attendance. The second one, again, was 2 years ago when one of my own postgraduates said, become a consultant by then, had left a patient unattended and attended to, no doubt, a mobile call outside the operating room. I said, what are you doing outside the operating room with this patient on the table? Oh, nothing will happen to my patient, sir, is what he said. I said, remember Dr. X, after 32 years in anesthesia, I cannot say that with confidence. How can you, with just a year or two of experience, promise that nothing will happen to your patient again? Please get back into the operating room, is what I said. So I think this is one thing that we need to get over. You have a task. You have been asked to look after your patient's welfare. Okay? Under anesthesia, the patient has only you to depend on. And somebody like Ramchandra who's operating does not have time to look at the monitors, doesn't have time to look at the physiological well-being of the patient. And therefore, it's only you and only you that needs to look after your patient, and do not ever leave your patients unattended. That's one of my career failures. Obviously, I failed as a teacher if I did not inculcate that habit in those two postgraduates at least. I don't know about the others. Okay. The second is doctoring records. We're all doctors by profession. That doesn't mean we doctor records. No, doctoring records is probably one of the worst acts of dishonesty that we can do in our profession. And this again happened a couple of years ago in our department, and I don't want to recall the details here, but it was very upsetting for me to know that somebody had doctored the records just to evade the punishment that would come along with it. And I think that is really bad. Remember, again, I said Jarabula Hanumantrao, he would never have done something like that. So don't ever doctor records, okay? You may have short-term gains, but in the long term, it will erode into your honesty and integrity. Be sure about that. I'll go on to the success stories. I like this. I think Anita also put up a diamond earlier. But I think, Anita, that was a rather unfair comparison. No, none of us in this room can ever reach the level of Dr. Thota. But I'll be quite happy if I'm somewhere at the 50th percentile of where Dr. Thota was. Right? So my teaching medal, so to say, it's not that I'm going to show my own medals. What are the medals for a teacher? The medals for a teacher are the students that are doing well. And in the next 3 slides, I've actually listed out people who have studied in our institution and who've gone on to do great things in their career. I know I might have forgotten some people in this room, but what I've taken as a criterion, as a bar, is that they've spent some time with us, as they've come to us as crude gems, and we, as a group, polished them and made them what they are today. And you can see M. Hanumantrao is actually heading a department, heading an institution in Tirupati. Anita, you all know, I had the good fortune of working under my own postgraduate. When she was heading the department, I was a junior colleague, and I really enjoyed that experience. Shashi Venkatesh is there in Bangalore. I won't tell you all the details. Lingegowda is actually heading a cancer institution in Bangalore. Ramdas heads an institution in Calicut. It goes on like that. Mahesh Vakamudi, as you all know, heads the department at, now he's gone on to a director's post, I think, at the Sri Ramchandra Institute of Medical Sciences. Usha Devi headed a department in Trivandrum. Aruna Ramesh is in MS Ramaya's in Bangalore. T.V. Ramakrishnan is again at Ramachandra Medical College, but he heads a different department, emergency medicine. Hariharan is in Trinidad and Tobago, again heading a department there. Charles is in Pariyaram. Swami Johnson and Ramesh Unnikrishnan, the last one, are the ones who are from our department of respiratory therapy. Again, 2 of our students who went on to head their departments. Vijay Singh Dina Singh is in Mauritius, again heads the department there. And Jairaj, I think, is somewhere in the audience. Jairaj is there, Ramesh is there, Anita is there, I'm sure. I don't know if any of the others are there. But these are some of the gems that we managed to turn out of our department. And we're really proud of every single postgraduate who came out of this department, but particularly so of these people who have actually gone on to become ambassadors of our department. And thank you very much for that. Nature and nurture. Those who educate children well are to be honored more than parents. I think teachers are more to be respected than parents, because while parents only give life to the child, teachers teach them the art of living well. And I think that's a very important take-home message. I'll leave you with a few points to ponder. Some learners in this room may one day become teachers. Okay, but what is a definite fact is that all teachers are lifelong learners. Till the day comes when you got to hang up your boots and say, I'm done with teaching, okay, till then you'll be learning every day. I can assure you that that's the speed at which our specialties are developing. So, though while some learners may one day become teachers, if you decide to take up a teaching profession, remember that you have to have the commitment to be a lifelong learner. What attributes of a teacher made Funny stand head and shoulders above his counterparts? Okay, let's examine some of that now. He was an inspirational teacher, and I refer to the statement by Ward, which said the last line, the teacher who is the highest level of teaching actually inspires the student. And he was one of them, without doubt. He was an inspirational teacher. He was a passionate academician, be it something in the teaching in the class, be it acid-base physiology, be it just teaching methods. How do you make a PowerPoint presentation? How do you make an overhead projector? He would sit with us, literally hold our hands and make us do those things. You need somebody like that to turn crude gems into finely polished gems. And he was such an example of a very passionate academician. He was also an astute and analytical clinician. A very important thing, he would actually not just talk about anesthesia, not just think about anesthesia. When a patient's in intensive care, let's say there's a surgeon who's been a little late to come and assess a patient. He would pick up the phone, call the surgeon personally, get the surgeon to come, or get the nephrologist to come and see the patient, whatever. Okay, I'm just talking about surgery, but get any other specialist involved when it is necessary. He wouldn't just sit and wait there for 2 hours for the nephrologist to come. By then, the damage may be done. So he was such an astute and analytical clinician that he could get the right person onto the patient at the right time. And that's actually what saves the patient very often. He was an honest and able administrator, and he was a never-tiring and energetic leader. I'd like to draw your attention to all the capitalized letters in these 5 lines. Okay? And those of us who play word games, Scrabble, so to say, if you just were to play around with that, what you will get is probably this, funny. Okay? So all of these were there in his name itself, all the 5 characteristics that I talked about. And we'll go on. T, Thota, thirst for improvement. H, humility. He stood for not only honesty, but humility as well. He had a lot of organizational skills, which starts off with not just the 1989 conference that I talked about, but all the APGAPs that you now see today are all his brainchild, along with Dr. Murli Sivarajan. He was a team player. He never believed that one person alone can do anything, and he always built up a team around him. And because of that, I remember January 1986, we started the first ICU in this department, in this institution. And if it was not for Thota, it would have still been a small dream in one corner of the institution. But he made sure that he got enough people energized and excited enough to keep his ideas, his dreams going. So he was a team player to the core. And finally, he taught us to aim high. I remember 1992. I was all of 38 years of age. And Thota calls me to his room. He was head of the department then. And he said, Ram, I want you to go to Solapur to give a lecture. I said, fine. And what is it? Then he says, it's an oration, Ram, he says. Then I took 2 steps back. I said, oration, funny, I don't think I'm ready for it yet. I said, I'm only 38 years old. I don't think I have the experience to give an oration. He said, I have faith in you. Don't you have faith in yourself, is what he said. And that's the kind of leader you need to take the department forward. You have to aim high. And he taught us how to aim high. Okay, aim for the moon. Maybe you'll fall short of it by a few feet, but you will still not be penalized for not thinking high. Truth is the last thing I'm going to say. As exemplified by his full name. Not many people in this room will know that his full name was Satya Phaneendra Thota. He often did not put that there because I think his way of life itself said that he was truth and Satya for what we hold for it. So he was Satya Phaneendra Thota, and he didn't put it very often in his name. This is a picture of Dr. Phani with his wife Usha. Dr. Gopi Jetanand Lalla, who passed away on the 26th of this month, along with his wife Damayanti. So now the 2 ladies are left, and the 2 men have gone away. But Phani, all I can say at this point is you have left behind a huge legacy of clinical and academic excellence at Manipal. It is something that you set far before its time. If you had not been there, we would have probably reached this kind of thing 20 years down the line. But because of you, we achieved it in a much shorter time. You have students all over the world, and I think every single student will promise that they will practice anesthesiology in a manner that would have made you proud. That is for sure. It's an unwritten legacy that you've made all of us promise to. Not a day goes by in our lives without a mention of you. And here you're Phani sitting with the 3 ladies of the department. To his left, my wife. To her left, Dr. Prasanna's wife, and then Usha, Phani's wife. All of them. So this I just put up to show how he used to socialize also. He was not a giant who could not be approached. He was down to earth at most times. This is a statement from Thomas Campbell which actually summarizes what I had to say. To live in the hearts we leave behind is not to die. Thota may not be with us now. He died in the year 2004. It's 14 years down the line that we are still talking about him. And that's the kind of person he was. Though he is no more with us, he lives on in our hearts. And I think that's very important. That's something that all of us should aim to do. Okay, all of us, okay, will go one day. But I think if you leave behind a legacy that people are there who are behind, whom you leave behind, who will think of you in a nice way, I think half your job is done. So today, Phani, we all salute you. Thank you very much.
Your talk has been so inspirational and mesmerizing as usual. It's time to give the oration plug to Sir, and I think I'm too small to do that. Manjunath, may I please request you to bring Professor Krishna Rao, and I would like Professor Pelenji Rao, who has been a close associate with us, and Dr. Pradeep and Dr. Sampath to join us as we give the plug to Sir.
Friends, you have heard a very nice oration about Phaneendra Thota by Professor Ramkumar. Let me congratulate you, Ramkumar, for having done a very good job. All of you don't know Ramkumar at all, many of you, except very few with whom we are very familiar. There are so many memories which are rushing in my mind. And I don't think I should take too much of your time in recollecting some of those memories. The Thota is a person who, as he has put it, always wanted to improve things and not give excuses for not doing things. Very often when people ask, why didn't you do a certain thing? We go on searching for excuses. Now here is a person who has never given any excuse for not doing a thing. And he always questioned whenever a thing is not done properly. I well recollect a challenge which he has thrown to me. I took over as a Department of Medical Education head in 1984 after my retirement as a dean. In 1984, I was asked to organize a Department of Medical Education wherein teaching and learning workshops are conducted for the teachers. I was a novice, and we had at that time a band of people who were interested in medical education. And that band I find here. And I miss so many others who have contributed to that. One is the Thota, who contributed the maximum. I will give you just one instance. I don't want to make an oration now. Just then, overhead projection was coming into the picture. Till then, only blackboard was there. In 1984 or so, the overhead projector was coming in. The slide projector at that time, not these sophisticated ones. You have to make a slide, it took about 24 hours or so, or more than that. But it's a very complicated program. And overhead projector was the most common one. And for overhead projector, you have to write. And my writing is horrible. In Tamil, there is a version what is known as Talayaluthu. That is the kind of writing my have. Therefore, how do I use an overhead projector? I was getting the artist to write all the overhead projectors. Then Phaneendra Thota threw a challenge. No, when you ask a teacher to use an overhead projector, everybody has no access to an artist. You as a dean or a just retired dean has got an access to artists. You can't ask people to use an artist all the time. Then I was wondering what to do. He gave the solution himself. Use what the children do for writing, improving the writing, copywriting. You've got lines, isn't it? Huh? Use those lines. Keep the transparency and underneath that put those lines and then write. And I did it and I have learned to use the OHP at that time. Remember the position of Dr. Thota at that time, a most junior person in the staff, and I a retired person. Who will dare to tell to a very senior one? There are two things. One is you not afraid of telling the truth, and another is I should also get some credit because I must allow the other person to tell my fault. That attitude also must be there. Therefore, as long as these two things are there, Phaneendra Thota was not afraid of questioning authority. That is a thing which all of us must learn. I find too much of a yes all the time. It doesn't mean that when a person has reached a person, he knows everything about everything. No. That is the wrong conception we all of us have. Whenever a person reaches a high position, all the others go on playing, what shall I say, second fiddle. At least all you people must learn that. Play a fiddle all right, but not a second fiddle. And therefore, be a little more independent in your thought. And if Phaneendra Thota has taught that, I'll be very happy. And Dr. Ramkumar has brought out so many of the good qualities which are present, which will make a good teacher. I do hope all of you will ruminate over it. Ruminate. That is the thing. That means you must go on chewing the cud. And that will lead. Therefore, thank you once again for a nice oration.